Have you ever felt like your life has fallen apart, leaving you abandoned, betrayed, and invisible to the world? Imagine a woman who lost her husband, her trust, and even her own dreams, sitting alone in a cafe, wondering if hope is ever possible again. But then a mysterious monk arrives from the deep forests of Yellowstone, offering no magic, only a chance to rediscover the courage, love, and purpose buried beneath years of pain. What unfolds next is a journey of healing, unexpected encounters, and a transformation so powerful it will make you question everything you thought about second chances. For years, Monk Miyagi had lived in silence within the sacred heart of Yellowstone Forest. His mornings began before dawn, when the mist still clung to the tall pines and the air carried the scent of cedar and rain. He meditated beneath an ancient tree said to have witnessed 1,000 winters, listening not to the noise of the world, but to the quiet voice within. People from distant lands would journey for days to find him. They arrived broken, burdened by guilt, fear, and questions about life. Miyagi would listen, not with judgment, but with a stillness that made even the most restless soul calm. His words were few, yet they carried the weight of eternity. But one morning, something shifted. While sitting in meditation, Miyagi felt a whisper in the wind, a soft pull calling him beyond the forest. It wasn't a voice of a person, but of purpose. He opened his eyes and saw a single white feather lying before him. It hadn't fallen from any bird nearby. It was a sign. He knew it was time. The world beyond the forest was trembling. People had forgotten how to breathe, how to listen, how to be kind. The noise of the cities had grown louder than the voice of the soul. Miyagi packed nothing but his prayer beads and a small wooden bowl. As he walked away from his cabin, the forest seemed to bow in silence, as if honoring his next journey. Hours later, a small bus stopped at the edge of the dirt road. The driver, a man in his 50s with tired eyes, asked where Miyagi was heading. The monk simply replied, "To where the pain lives." The driver nodded, as if he somehow understood. The bus rolled down the long highway, leaving the peace of Yellowstone behind. Through the dusty window, Miyagi watched mountains fade into horizon and cities rise from the mist. His journey had begun, not to be found, but to find those who had lost themselves. By late afternoon, the bus reached a small town wrapped in grey clouds. Miyagi stepped off at a quiet street corner, where a tiny cafe glowed softly against the cold. Through the window, he saw a woman sitting alone, her hands wrapped around a cup that had long gone cold. Something in her stillness called to him. He entered the cafe quietly. The bell above the door rang with a gentle chime. The woman didn't look up. Her eyes were distant, fixed on something far beyond the walls of that place, maybe a past she couldn't forget. Miyagi sat at the table next to hers, ordered a cup of tea, and waited. He didn't know her story yet, but he could feel her pain, heavy and silent, like the fog outside. And in that small cafe, where time seemed to have stopped, the path of a lost soul and a traveling monk had just crossed, not by chance, but by destiny. The woman sat motionless, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. The coffee had gone cold long ago, but she didn't notice. Her eyes were lost beyond the window, where raindrops slid down the glass like small, tired tears. Monk Miyagi watched her quietly from his seat by the window. He didn't stare, but his calm presence seemed to reach across the air between them. After a few minutes, he rose and walked to her table, his steps soundless. "May I sit?" he asked gently. She hesitated, surprised by the stranger in the simple robe, but nodded. "Sure, it's a free country," she replied, her voice weary, a hint of sarcasm hiding the pain beneath. Miyagi sat down slowly. "Freedom," he said softly, "is a beautiful word, but sometimes it's the heaviest chain." She looked up at him, frowning slightly. "What's that supposed to mean?" He smiled faintly. "It means that many who call themselves free are prisoners of their own thoughts." Her defenses softened for a moment. "You sound like one of those spiritual types. A monk or something?" "Yes," Miyagi replied. "From the forest." She gave a quiet laugh. "The forest? What are you doing in this place? People don't come here unless they have to." "I was sent," he said, "not by anyone you can see." The woman's eyes narrowed, curiosity battling skepticism. "You mean you believe God sent you?" Miyagi's gaze remained steady. "I believe pain is not called by accident. When a heart cries out, something always listens." Her lips trembled. She looked down, trying to hide the emotion rising inside her. "You shouldn't waste your time. I'm not worth saving." Miyagi leaned forward slightly. "Who told you that?" She stayed silent. The rain outside grew heavier, filling the space between them with sound. After a moment, Miyagi took a napkin from the table, dipped his finger into his tea, and began drawing a small circle. "This is the past," he said. "You keep walking around it, believing it's all there is, but life," he drew a line breaking out of the circle, "was never meant to be lived in loops." The woman stared at the napkin. Her eyes filled with tears again. Miyagi stood. "The tea is cold. Let's walk. Sometimes the soul speaks better in the open air." She didn't know why she followed him, only that something inside her had begun to breathe again. The river cut through the heart of the small town, a quiet, forgotten place where the sound of the water drowned the noise of human worry. Monk Miyagi and the woman walked in silence along the narrow path, the air cool and damp after the rain. They stopped by an old wooden bench overlooking the water. The woman sat first, folding her arms tightly, as if protecting herself from something unseen. Miyagi remained standing for a moment, his eyes on the river's current. "The river," he said, "never argues with the stones in its way. It simply flows around them." The woman let out a bitter laugh. "That's easy for a river. It doesn't have bills to pay, kids to raise, or people judging it every single day." Miyagi sat beside her. "True, but it does have a purpose, to keep moving, no matter what stands in front of it." She stared at the water, her jaw trembling. "I used to believe I had a purpose once. I wanted to teach art to children. I even got a scholarship for it. But my husband didn't think it was practical. He said dreams don't pay rent." Miyagi turned his gaze toward her. "And where is he now?" Her face hardened. "Gone. He left last year. Took another woman. Took the savings. Took my trust." There was a long silence. The only sound was the rhythm of the river and the distant cry of a bird overhead. Miyagi picked up a small stone and dropped it into the water. Ripples spread outward, touching the far side of the bank. "Pain," he said, "is like this stone. It falls hard, but the ripples reach farther than you think." The question is, what will you let those ripples carry? Anger or awakening? Tears filled her eyes. I don't even know how to start again. He smiled gently. You already have. The moment you spoke it aloud, your heart began to remember its strength. The woman looked at him, really looked this time. There was something about his face, calm yet powerful, that made her believe him. She wiped her tears. I don't even know your name, she said softly. My name is Miyagi, he answered. And you? Claire. Miyagi nodded, repeating her name as if blessing it. Claire, bright light. Even your name remembers what you've forgotten. Claire let out a faint smile for the first time. Maybe it's just the river talking, but I feel lighter. It's not the river, Miyagi said. It's you finally letting the current carry what was never yours to hold. They sat there quietly, watching the water move endlessly forward. Two souls sharing silence, learning that healing often begins not with answers, but with being seen. That evening, Claire invited Monk Miyagi to her home, a small weathered house at the edge of town. The walls were lined with years of unspoken memories, some sweet, others too heavy to recall. As they stepped inside, Miyagi noticed the faint smell of dust and forgotten paint. Brushes lay dried on a shelf, and an old easel stood in the corner, covered by a cloth. He walked toward it slowly. You used to paint, he said. Claire froze. I did. A long time ago. Why did you stop? She looked down. Because life stopped for me. When he left, everything I painted felt meaningless. Every color turned gray. Miyagi's eyes moved to the staircase leading upward. What's up there? Just the attic, she said quietly. Old things I couldn't throw away. He paused. Sometimes the things we hide in the attic of our home are the same things we hide in the attic of our mind. Claire hesitated, then motioned toward the stairs. Come on, I'll show you. They climbed slowly, the steps groaning beneath their weight. The attic door creaked open, revealing boxes stacked high and sheets draped over forgotten furniture. Dust floated in the light of a single hanging bulb. In the corner, half buried under a blanket, was a large canvas. Claire pulled it out, her hands trembling. The painting showed a little girl standing beneath a tree, her hands open to the sky, free, innocent, full of hope. Miyagi studied it silently. Who is she? My daughter, Claire said, her voice breaking. I painted it when she was 7, before everything fell apart. Miyagi stepped closer, his eyes soft. You painted not just your daughter, but your faith in life. She shook her head. That faith is gone. He gently brushed the dust off the edge of the canvas. Faith never dies, Claire. It only waits for us to remember where we left it. The words lingered in the air. Claire ran her fingers over the painting, tracing the colors that had once defined her joy. Something inside her stirred, a faint memory of laughter, of late nights painting with music playing in the background, of believing she could create beauty in a broken world. Miyagi turned toward her. Tomorrow, he said softly, we'll bring this painting downstairs. The world below still needs color. She looked at him, tears forming again. You really think I can paint again? He smiled, serene and steady. You already are. Every tear is a brush stroke. That night, as the storm passed over the town, Claire sat awake, staring at the painting. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. Somewhere deep inside, she knew the monk hadn't come to fix her life. He had come to remind her that she still had one. The next morning, the rain had stopped, and the air carried the scent of wet earth and new beginnings. Claire stood in her small living room, the painting of her daughter now leaning against the wall. Monk Miyagi sat at the table sipping tea, watching her quietly. She looked at the canvas for a long time, her fingers brushing the edges as if touching a memory. "I didn't sleep much," she said. "I kept thinking about everything I used to dream of doing." Miyagi nodded. "Dreams are not ghosts from the past. They are seeds waiting for courage." Claire smiled faintly. "It's been years since I even touched a brush. I wouldn't know where to start." He stood and motioned toward the table, where a small blank canvas rested beside a cup of water and a few faded paintbrushes. "Start there," he said. She stared at the empty canvas, her breath quickening. "I can't. What if it doesn't come back to me? What if I've lost it?" Miyagi walked closer. "When a child learns to walk, do you think she worries about falling?" "No. Then why do you?" Claire looked down, realizing how fear had quietly taken root in her life. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of trying again. Miyagi placed his hand gently on the table. The canvas does not ask for perfection. It asks for honesty. She picked up the brush, hesitantly at first. Her hand trembled as she dipped it into the water, then into the paint. The first stroke felt clumsy, uncertain, but it was real. As she painted, Miyagi watched in silence. There was no correction, no instruction, only presence. Hours passed. The morning turned to afternoon, and light moved across the room. Slowly, a scene began to emerge. A small girl, now older than before, standing beside a river, her reflection shimmering beneath her feet. Claire stepped back, tears filling her eyes. "It's her," she whispered, "but older, like she's been waiting for me." Miyagi smiled gently. "And she has. Every time you told yourself it was too late, she waited." Claire wiped her eyes. "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple," Miyagi said, "but not easy." He looked at the painting again. "When you create, you remember who you are, not the woman who was left, but the woman who stayed." Claire stood silently, feeling the truth in his words. The emptiness she had carried for years began to dissolve, replaced by something fragile yet powerful. Peace. Miyagi placed the brush back on the table. "Do you know why I left the forest, Claire?" She shook her head. "Because the forest no longer needed me, but hearts like yours do." Her voice trembled. "So you travel just to help people like me?" He smiled. "No, I travel to remind people that help has always been within them." For the first time in a long while, Claire didn't feel broken. She felt alive, not because someone had saved her, but because someone had reminded her how to save herself. Later that afternoon, Claire walked with Monk Miyagi toward the school where her daughter, Lily, attended. The sun had broken through the grey clouds, and for the first time in weeks, the air felt lighter, as if the town itself was taking a deep breath. Claire carried a small lunch bag in her hands, something she used to prepare every morning before she stopped caring enough to try. Now, that simple act felt sacred. "She doesn't talk to me much anymore," Claire said quietly as they neared the gate. She thinks I gave up on us. Maybe she's right." Miyagi walked beside her in silence for a moment before answering. "A child doesn't stop loving a mother when she falls. She only waits for her to stand again." When Lily came out of the school, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders, she froze at the sight of her mother. "Mum?" she asked, her tone cautious. Claire smiled nervously. "Hey, sweetheart, I brought your favorite sandwich. Thought maybe we could have lunch by the park." Lily hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay." They sat on a bench nearby, while Miyagi stood at a distance, watching the reunion unfold like sunlight breaking through clouds. At first there was silence, the kind filled with everything left unsaid. Then Lily spoke softly. "You've been crying a lot lately." Claire swallowed hard. "I know, I'm sorry, I just forgot how to be strong for a while." Lily looked down at her sandwich. "It's okay, Mum. I was scared too." Claire's voice cracked. "You were?" "Yeah," Lily said, her eyes glistening. "When Dad left, I thought maybe you'd leave too, even if you stayed." Claire reached for her daughter's hand, tears spilling freely now. "I'm not leaving, baby. Not anymore." Miyagi approached slowly, placing 2 cups of tea on the bench beside them. "Tea," he said softly, "is best shared between those learning to forgive." Claire smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Miyagi." Lily studied the monk curiously. "Are you a friend of my mum's?" Miyagi nodded. "A friend of her heart." Lily tilted her head. "So you're like her teacher?" He chuckled quietly. "No, she is teaching me too." Claire laughed softly for the first time in what felt like forever. "Teaching you what?" "That courage is not the absence of pain," Miyagi said, looking at both of them. "It is the choice to love again, even when the heart still shakes." The 3 of them sat in silence, sipping tea, while leaves danced in the afternoon breeze. For the first time, Lily leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. Claire closed her eyes, breathing deeply, knowing something inside her had healed. Not completely, but enough to begin again. Miyagi looked toward the river in the distance. "The wind calls again," he murmured. Claire turned to him. "You're leaving, aren't you?" He smiled gently. "When a heart remembers its light, my path moves on." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Miyagi stepped back. "Walk each day as if it were your first," he said, "and paint your world with gratitude." He turned and began walking down the narrow road leading out of town, his robe moving softly in the evening wind. Claire and Lily watched until his figure disappeared into the orange light of dusk. Sound, distant wind chime, soft piano melody begins. Monk Miyagi shows us that healing is not about magic or miracles. It is about choice. The choice to believe, the choice to forgive, the choice to love again. And while he may walk unseen, the light he leaves behind lives in every heart that remembers how to dream, how to hope, and how to move forward. Because kindness, when shared, is the greatest journey of all. Comment below, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. Until next time.